Hey guys, thanks for joining us tonight at the church online campus. Tonight is week 4 of our new series, Meant to Be, the Bible's best kept secrets on sex, marriage, and being single. During tonight's message, we would love to connect with you. So if you haven't already, go over and click on our live chat. There you can talk to one of our service hosts and they'll answer any questions you might have during tonight's message. Tonight's going to be awesome, but be sure to stick around afterwards to hear about some of the amazing things coming up right here at the church. Here's Pastor Kevin with week 4 of Meant to Be.
Fellas, here's a verse for you. A quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Now, that is not a good time to say amen if your wife's beside you, but sometimes it can be true, is that a quarrelsome woman is like living with a constant drip, drip, drip. You guys get the point. It can get annoying after a while. So guys, that's for you. Now, ladies, and just so you don't feel left out a little bit, here's a passage for you, and I quote, "It is better to have severe hemorrhoids than to live with a husband that is a real jerk." Oh, got an amen over there. Okay. It's better it's better to have a pain in the butt than to live with a pain in the butt. We'll just say it that way. Now, if you want a passage of where that's found in the Bible, you won't find it because it's not in the Bible. That's like just second book of Kevin, chapter 3. I just made it up, but I want to throw a bone out to the ladies. Tonight, what we're going to be talking about is tonight we're going to be continuing this series, and we're going to be talking about fighting in relationships, and specifically how to fight fair. Now, who here has ever had, you're married, and you've ever had a fight with your spouse? Raise your hand if you had a fight with your spouse. Okay. Who here ever had a fight with your spouse that was absolutely ignorant? It was about toothpaste. It was about the way she makes chili. It was crazy. Okay. Who here, now be honest, you've ever fought on the way to a church service? Both of my hands are up and I'm the pastor. Okay. We won't ask if you fought on your way here today. That could get interesting. But we all have had fights. We all have had fights over odd things and fights over important things. And the thing that we want to kind of talk about tonight is that having a good marriage or a bad marriage is not determined on if you fight. Because if you are married, you are going to fight. Whether your marriage is healthy or it's unhealthy, there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be distractions, there's going to be some tension from time to time. You are going to fight. But the thing of it is that healthy marriages, those people fight fair. Unhealthy marriages don't fight fair. Unhealthy marriages, they fight dirty. They fight with low blows. They fight with some undercuts and some jabs. Healthy marriage, again, marriages you're going to fight, but healthy marriages fight fair, and healthy marriages fight towards resolution, where unhealthy marriages, people fight to win. I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to prove my point. I'm going to put them in their place. Healthy marriages have discussions and disagreements in order to have resolution to a problem. But unhealthy marriages want to prove a point, or they want to put their spouse in their place. There was a doctor that studied marriages for years. In fact, he studied them for 16 years. His name is John Gottman. And Dr. Gottman studied thousands and thousands of marriages for 16 years, to such the extent that now he can sit in a room with any couple, and for just after 5 minutes, with 91% accuracy, he can let the couple know, and he can tell the other people, yeah, this couple's going to make it, or this couple's not going to make it. And he can tell not if they fight or if they don't fight. He can tell by the way that they talk to each other. It's not if you fight, he says. It's when you fight and how you fight. And so tonight what we want to do is, if you're single in the room, we want to prepare you and kind of prep you with some information that you're going to need to when you are married. And if you are married, we want to kind of equip you with some things that are going to hopefully maybe bring some healing to some hurts in your life, but also maybe educate you on how to walk with God in a different way, so that you actually, when you fight fair. In order to do that, we're going to look at the Bible. We're at a church, so we're going to focus on the word. It's James chapter 1, verse 19 through 20. This is what the Bible says in the book of James. It says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires." This one verse, the name of this series is meant to be the Bible's best kept secrets about sex, marriage, and being single. And we're going to look at James today, and we're going to find some secrets that are woven inside of James in order to repair some hurts and also maybe to help us from being hurt in the future by not fighting properly. So tonight's message, if you have titles, is basically this. It's 3 rules on how to fight fair. 3 rules on how to fight fair. So here's the first one. Number 1 is stop to listen carefully. When you're in an argument, when there's a disagreement, you've got to stop what you're doing and you got to listen. Not just listen, you got to listen carefully. Listen carefully. The Bible says that everyone, that's you, that's me, that's our spouse, everyone should be quick to listen. Now here's the deal. We're usually quick to talk. We're usually quick to be, quick-witted, to throw in a jab, to throw in a comment. I know for me, a lot of times, honestly, I'm listening to my wife, and it's kind of like, Charlie Brown's, mom, want, and I'm just waiting for my time, for her to take a breath, and then I can show her how smart I am, or I can, make this little comment here. And generally, we are quick to speak, we're quick to state our opinion, but we're not quick to listen. And this can get us in trouble sometimes when we don't listen properly. As you can tell, I'm not a female, so I can't get into the female mind, but I can get into the men's mind because I am a man. And maybe this has happened before. I don't know you, I don't know your house, but maybe, fellas, you're sitting on the couch Sunday afternoon and you're watching the Raiders get beat again, and you're sitting there watching the Raiders, and you got the remote control in your hand because as soon as the commercial comes on, you're going to flip over to NFL Network or flip over to the Red Zone so you don't have to watch any commercials, and you're all into it. So you're watching the Raiders, and all of a sudden you see your wife out of your peripheral vision come, and she's coming towards you, and you can see that she's moving her mouth, she's speaking, and she sits down beside you. You kind of look at her real quick and then go back to the TV. And you hear her talking. You hear words coming out of her mouth. And in that moment, there's a part of you that says, put the remote control down and look at your wife and listen to what she's saying. This might be important. There's part of you that says, listen, but then there's this man part of you that says, hey, I can do 2 things at once. I can watch TV and I can flip the channels and I can listen to my girl all at the same time. So while she's talking, you're like, blah, 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 Are you listening to me? And you just keeps talking, and everything's okay until you turn and you ask her a question that's exactly the same thing she just told you a few seconds ago. And all of a sudden, you just, and you go right back to the TV, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're not even listening to me. You're just paying attention to that football game. You're just watching that pigskin. I know why. You think I'm a pig. You think I'm fat. You think I'm overweight. You don't even know me anymore, and I don't even know you. And all of a sudden, the husband looks up and goes, what? Right? You're not even listening. Guys and gals, we've got to begin to master the art of of stopping what we're doing and listen to our spouse. Listen to our spouse. Here's what the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 18. Now, quick side note, if you're not a Bible reader, there's a lot of great spots in the Bible to read, but I would encourage you, even if you're really even wondering if there's a God and all that stuff, I would encourage you, man, jump in the book of Proverbs. It is just so wise. There's so many good things in Proverbs, no matter where you are in life in your walk with God. So we're going to kind of jump in and out of Proverbs a little bit. Proverbs 18:2, it says, fools find no pleasure in understanding, but they delight in airing their own opinions. It says there that a fool finds no pleasure in understanding what someone else is saying, but a fool finds delight in hearing words come out of his or her own mouth. A fool's like, hey, I know your mouth's moving, but I don't really care what you're saying because I got some gold that's getting ready to come out. And the Bible says that's foolish. That's a mistake. That's not wise. And so we've got to begin to not just be ready to throw out some good comment. We've got, in those times of tension, in those times of arguments, we've got to be ready and equipped to listen to what our spouse is saying. Veronica and I went to this marriage retreat several years ago. It was a great retreat. It was a little bit deeper one than what some we had normally gone to. And in this retreat, they really talked about kind of some tips on how to practically walk out listening in your marriage or in your dating life if you're single. And here's just a couple tips. The first one is this, is when things are getting a little tense and your spouse is really talking to you honestly and earnestly about what they're feeling, the first step is repeat back to your spouse what they just said to you. Literally repeat back to them what they said. Now, in order to do that, you have to hear what they said. So you've got to listen to them. And so in that moment, they say something, hey, 1, 2, 3. So what you say is, okay, now what you're telling me is you were telling me 1, 2, 3. This is what you're saying, right? And so in that moment, you repeat back to them what it is that they said. Hey, I don't like it when you sit on your hind end and just watch football games on Sunday afternoon. It really kind of bugs me. Oh, so what you're saying is you don't like it when I sit on my hind end all Sunday. It kind of bugs you a little bit, right? And so you literally repeat back what your spouse has said to you. That lets her know or him know they're listening to me. It also keeps things on the subject, and you're not getting way off target and arguing about how you're arguing. You're literally keeping the issue. So number one, repeat back what they said. And then secondly, in those moments when your spouse is getting a little crazy and you're starting to get tense, is you repeat back to them and you say, hey, I understand why you feel this way whenever I do this. So in this conversation, your wife says, hey, when you sit on your hind end and watch football all afternoon while I'm in the room, it really makes me feel unwanted. So then you would turn around as a husband or a spouse and you would say, okay, hey, so what you're saying is you don't like it when I sit and watch TV all day. And you know what, girl, I can totally understand how that would make you feel unwanted. That's totally different than, well, I don't like it when you're sitting around on your hind end all day and just watching a football game. It makes me feel unwanted. Well, really? Well, I don't give a rat's hind end what you feel. That's totally different, right? It's a totally different scenario. One, you're listening and you're engaging and you are trying to put yourself where they are. The other is you're just being foolish and not listening to a thing that they're saying, and it's going to get tough. So in that moment, listen. This is what you're telling me, and I totally understand that this is why it makes you feel this way. Now, here's a side note on this. When you say to them, hey, I understand how this can make you feel this way, you're not saying, I totally agree. You're not saying, I agree with you. You're just saying, I can understand how this makes you feel this way. So you're not just giving in and losing the fight. It's just, I understand you. I hear you. I understand you. You're listening. That's number one, is you've got to begin to master the art of listening and value what it is your spouse is saying. Number two, in order to fight fair, is number one is you're quick to listen carefully. Number two is you guard your words faithfully. Guard your words faithfully. On a regular basis, be careful of what comes out of your mouth. Don't just speak without thinking. When you speak without thinking, man, when I speak without thinking, I almost always regret what I said. So we've got to begin to guard our words faithfully. Here's what the Bible says in Proverbs 21:23. It says, watch your words and hold your tongue, and you'll save yourself a lot of grief. This is a great passage. Watch your words and hold your tongue, and you'll save yourself a lot of grief. This is a great passage to tell ourselves, right? Man, okay, I'm getting ready to say something. I need to watch what I say and hold my tongue so I don't get in a lot of grief here. Basically, what it's saying is keep your trap shut and you're going to save yourself some grief. Now that's a great thing to tell yourself. Hey, Kevin, keep your trap shut. You're going to save yourself from some grief. That's a horrible thing to tell your spouse. Okay, you don't say that to your spouse. When things are getting tense, you don't say, oh yeah, well, you know what the Bible says, girl, and you put your finger right on her mouth and say, shh, shh. Girl, you shut your trap, and you'll save yourself a lot of grief. Okay, don't do that, fellas. And girls, don't do that. It's not a good verse to quote to someone else, but it's a great verse to say to yourself, because you can never, ever take those words back. Once they're said, they're there. So because of that, we've got to set a filter in our mind before we speak in those times of tension. We've got to run a couple thoughts through our mind before we let those words out. And the first thought is this, should it be said? Should I even say this? Is this something that I should even speak? And the second one is to guard our mouth and guard our words is, should it be said now? Number one is when you're in this tense moment and something's happening and you've got this thing that's in your mind and you're saying, okay, should this even be said? And if the answer is no, don't say it. Because if you do say it, it's like this morning when you got up and you're going to brush your teeth and you put that toothpaste on the toothbrush and you squirted that toothpaste out. As soon as that toothpaste comes out, you can't get the toothpaste back in. I've tried. It's ugly. It doesn't work. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. It's the same way with your words. Once those words come out of our mouth, that you can't put them back. So because of that, ask yourself, should I even say this? And if the answer is no, control your mouth. Shut your trap, and you'll save yourself some grief. The second thing to ask ourselves in this moment is, okay, should it be said, but should it be said right now? Is this something that if I say it now, it has to do with what we're talking about? Or if I say it now, is it going to get us up off this rabbit trail and really take this argument to the next level? Should I say it or should I say it now? And if you shouldn't say it now, don't say it. Because what will happen is the argument will escalate into something so much bigger. So that's the first thing, is should I say it? Secondly, should I say it right now? Now here's the thing. As a couple, whether you're single or whether you're married, especially if you're married, we need to create some margin in our life, some margin in our relationships to where we actually can begin to talk about how things are going. And if you're single, man, this is huge as well, because you got to get this practice in your life, and then whenever you get married, it's going to be a little more natural. For married couples in the room, you've got to create some time in your life to say those things that need to be said, but don't say them in that heated moment. So what you need to do is and Veronica and I do this from time to time as well, is we'll get alone, she grabs a cup of coffee, I grab a diet soda or whatever, and we sit down and we start to talk and ask your spouse a very powerful, simple question. What are 3 things that I do that you really like? What are 3 things that I do that you really like? And some spouses in the room are like, well, dang, I don't know if there's one. I don't know if I can find one. You can find one. What's 3 things that I do that you like? Why do you love me? Why are you attracted to me? What's something that I do that you're like, whoa, man, that's why I care about you? And talk about those really, really good things. Then in that same conversation, turn a corner and say, well, what are 2 or 3 things that maybe I need to change? What are 2 or 3 things that I need to change in our relationship? And then zip this up and listen. Listen to what she has to say. Get a notebook out and talk and take note and engage her, engage him. Listen, because that's the time to talk about some issues when things are good. Not in the middle of an argument. It's not the time to throw out even more issues. It's when things are good and you've been serving him and she's been serving you and vice versa, and the marriage is grooving and everything's great. It's in that moment, hey, why is it that you love me so much? What are some things that are working? And also, what are some things that we need to work on? But we need to ask ourselves, should it be said and should it be said now? And if it should be said, maybe save it for this time here, this special time when you're talking. Now, here's the deal. Even if you do all of those things, if you listen carefully and you guard your words faithfully, you're still going to get in some fights. You're still going to get in some arguments. So what we want to do now is as it pertains to our words, we're going to talk about some nevers, things that you never do when you're fighting. These are massive. Here you go. Number one is never call names. Never call names, unless you're like some little, hey, honey bear, hey, pookie boo, hey, my little mashed potato, or whatever your love word is. That's okay. If your honey's name is my little mashed potato, change the name. Okay, you might want to change the name, but don't call names. Don't get into vulgarity. Don't get into crudeness. Don't get into rude things. Don't resort to name calling when you're arguing and have a tense moment with your spouse. Number one. Number two is never raise your voice. Nothing good comes from yelling. Nothing good comes from yelling. Here's the deal about yelling. You as the speaker don't have the right to define what yelling is to the person listening. Because the person listening may come from a home that everything was really quiet and they never yelled. And it's, could you please pass the salt? Thank you so much. And it could have been such a polite, nice, nobody yells, dad's very calm. And so that person coming to a marriage, when all of a sudden the voice flexion goes up, even going up just a little bit, they're going to be like, whoa, why are you being so mean? Why are you yelling? Because they're not used to that. Or you may come from a house where like everybody's yelling. It's yelling the whole time. Hey, pass me the salt. Hey, pass me the pepper. Hey, what the world you doing? Get back in this room. And you're like, hey, that's just life. So you don't get to define what yelling is for the listener. So talk about that. And then whatever that level is, don't go there. Don't yell in an argument because it's not going to help. It's like taking a match and boom, throwing it into gasoline, it's going to get bigger. The next one is never get historical. Never get historical. Never bring back past mistakes. Oh, yeah? Well, last Thursday, girl. You remember? Yeah, you remember last Thursday. Last Thursday, I was sitting there, and you told me, and then lady's, oh, well, when the kids were born 12 years ago, you weren't even there. I don't know you've been dropping the ball for 12 years, and you're bringing up stuff 12 years ago. Bringing up stuff from last Thursday, 6 months ago. No, don't get historical. Don't bring back those past things. Man, don't dig up the zombies. Don't do that. Bury them. Don't get historical. Don't bring up the past. It's never going. I've been married for 25 years. And there's never been one time in our marriage where I have brought up the past, where all of a sudden Veronica was like, hey, you know what? I think the fight's over. You win. Yeah, I'm wrong. You're right. That's never happened. It never helps to bring up the past, so don't go there. Don't get historical, because it's not going to help. The other thing to never say is never say never or always in a fight. You always do that. You are never here. You're never even here for me to talk to. Well, that can't be. He's standing in front of you right now. So by definition, he's here now. Right? You can't say he's never here because he's here now. Don't lie about it. Don't exaggerate about it. The truth of the matter is it very well could be you usually don't. Most times you don't. But don't go never and always because you are painting this broad picture that's not true. You know it's not true. They know it's not true, and it's not going to help. So use reality. Usually, most times, it's your habit to, but don't never and always, because it's going to get ugly. 2 more. Never use the D word. Never say divorce. Divorce isn't an option. I know there may be some in the room that you got divorced before, and now you're remarried. Understand that? Okay, now from here on out, don't use divorce as an option. Don't say, hey, well, really? Well, let's just end it. We'll just get divorced then. Don't say that because it opens the door for questions and doubts. It opens the door for that this argument's over and it's healed up. But then the next time you get into a fight, that wife or that husband's going to remember, hey, they've already said they're thinking about leaving. And then they'll bring it up. Oh, really? Well, last time we got in an argument, you said you were going to leave, so go ahead and leave then. And you planted a seed. Don't plant the seed of divorce in your marriage. Don't speak that. You have a covenant. You have a great God who can part the Red Sea. He can turn water into wine. He can bring dead people back to life. Surely he can help you in your marriage. So don't speak about divorce. And the last one is, never quote your pastor in an argument. Don't do it. Leave me out of this, man. You got yourself into it, you're going to get yourself out. Well, Pastor Kevin says, no. Leave Pastor old PK out of this. Okay, you got in, you can get out. Don't quote your pastor. It's not going to help, all right? So those are some things to never say. And in arguing, it's very important to listen quickly. It's also important to guard your words faithfully. And 3, this is the last one, is you got to handle your anger righteously. Handle it in a God-honoring way. As Christians, those of us in the room who have surrendered to Jesus, we're going to get angry. But there's a couple different types of anger. There's human anger, and James says that human anger is not godly. It's not going to bring goodness from God. Then there's righteous anger. Anger that is deserved. Anger, righteous indignation. There was a wrong that was done, and it upsets us. Perfectly fine. But there's a difference there. There's human anger that leads into some sin and leads into pride and it leads into kind of personal preference. And then there's righteous anger. There's something that needs to be fixed. Let's fix this thing. And we need to handle our anger righteously because James says human anger does not produce the righteousness or the goodness that God desires. So we've got to handle our anger righteously. And there's 2 ways. There's a lot of ways, but there's 2 ways to handle anger righteously. The first one would be, I know it sounds odd, just let it go. Just don't get ticked about it. Something happened, just let it go. There's a lot of times God does that. We're still alive. He hasn't killed us yet. He's letting some things slide, right? Sometimes we just let it go. And here's the reason why. Ladies, you married a man. So men are going to do men things. They're going to do some things that men do. Now in that, let me quantify this. I'm not saying in that underlining umbrella of what men do is, hey, ladies, listen, guys look at tons of porn. That's just guys being guys. Just let it go. No, I'm not saying that. Because if it's me and my wife and I'm looking at porn, there's going to be an argument, and and she's going to have a knife in her hand. That's what's going to happen. It's going to get ugly quick. So I'm not saying I'll just wink at it and let that go. I'm saying that guys are guys. They're going to do some things that you don't understand. As a lady, sometimes in that realm, let it go. Also, guys, you married a woman. She's not going to do everything the way you do it. She's different than you. That's okay. Sometimes you just got to, that's a lady being a lady. I'm going to just let this go. I'm not going to make it a big deal. Sometimes you got to go Frozen song on this stuff. You just got to let it go, because the dirty socks in the corner didn't bother you anyway, right? Just let this thing, see what I did there, the song? You guys will get it. Is just let it go. Dirty socks in the corner or something like that. Sometimes you talk about it and you try and fix it, and other times, listen, it is what it is. I'm just not going to make a big deal out of this. But then there's other times where you don't let it go, where you dig in and you fix this problem. And that's a very righteous thing as well. And when that happens, here's what the Bible says, how to handle righteous is, in your anger, don't sin. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry. Don't give the devil a foothold. Some of us, when we get to this point, there's a tension in the room, there's something that happened during the course of the day, and now it's getting time for bed, and we just I don't want to argue into the night, I don't want to stay up till 2 a.m, I don't want to get this thing, I want to end this thing, and it's done, but yet it's not done, it's still in our heart, and it's still there, and we're still tense, and we're still angry, and in those moments, God says, don't go to sleep yet. Push through this thing. Fight through this thing. Talk through this thing. Because if you don't, you'll let it sit there, and it's like you kicked open the door for the wicked one, and he's crawled into your heart now. And over the course of the night and the course of the next morning, he's going to be bringing up all these things. And sometimes because we don't want to deal with something tonight, we end up carrying it into next week. and then the following week, and then the following week, and then another fight happens, and then we go historical, and we bring up the fact that 3 weeks ago you did this. But in reality, if we were to push through it and talk through it and listen through it and engaged each other through it, we could have dealt with the problem, and it's out of our heart, and it's gone, and we're able to move on. That's why God says, don't go to bed angry. Don't go to bed with this in your heart. You might not sleep for 3 days, but it's okay. Don't go to bed. Don't go to bed tense and angry. Because the minute that you get married, I was thinking about this the other day. When we get married, those of you that are single, when you get married, you are instantly, at nighttime and there's a fight, you're instantly going to know how to act. It just comes natural. And those of us that are married, we understand this. We've all seen this. We've probably all lived this, is that when you go to bed and we're angry with each other and we're tense with each other, we kind of just assume the position, and the position of anger is back to back. You ever notice that before? She's facing this way and he's facing this way, and you're back to back. You're not facing each other. And in that moment, there's a lot of different ways, but there's two different main types of people in fighting at nighttime. And the first one is, they're back to back, and the first one is they're totally quiet. Just don't say a word. Just lay there. Just don't move. I'm not even going to give you the pleasure of knowing if I'm breathing or not. I might be dead, but I'm not moving. And you just lay there, nothing. Hey, girl, come on, let's talk. Touch their shoulder, nothing, right? Some people are just the silent type. Then there's other people, the only word I can call it is just, they're kind of like, they're just always kind of like just huffers. They're just huff. Get in the bed and, good night. Sheesh. Golly. Go to the bathroom, slam the lid down. Sheesh. Go. Get back in the bed. And then, so you got the guy over here, you got the silent girl over here, and God forbid, he reaches over and accidentally touches her toe. I mean, in that moment, good night. It's like all of a sudden now she comes to life. Hey, don't you be touching my toe. There ain't going to be no toe tonight. There ain't going to be no touching any toes tonight, buddy. No, right? And we just know, right, that's the enemy. And and it's so true and it's so funny, but man, it's also, if we don't handle this properly, it can be so dangerous. Going to sleep that way, back to back. Going to sleep silent and angry. Going to sleep, don't touch me, I won't touch you. That's not healthy. And so it's in those moments that maybe we don't even know what to do. I think it's in those moments that we probably at least need to turn to our Creator. And like we talked about yesterday, seek God together. Because it's pretty hard to go to bed angry, back to back, after you've held hands and prayed for your spouse. So maybe take some time and pray. Just ask God to at least give some peace so that you can sleep, know that everything's okay, we're going to work, this is working out, and you're sleeping good, and you wake up and you go on your day free. But you've got to learn to handle anger righteously. Now, in closing tonight, there is a broad spectrum of tension and arguments in marriages now, and those that are single that are going to be coming into marriage in the future. People in the room or maybe people watching online we've got everything probably from small things like, I don't really like the way that she, makes pancakes, to we can't figure out agreement on how to discipline our children, to I just found out something very private and devastating that's been going on that I didn't realize, and everything in between. There's some real things going on, some big boy, big girl issues going on in some relationships. And so it is so important to learn how to fight fair. Because if you don't learn how to fight fair and you don't surrender to God with your listening and with your words and by handling your anger properly, what will happen is you'll kind of start going through this process, this 4-part process that ends pretty ugly. And so just in the last 3 to 5 minutes, I just want to give you real quick just 4 warning signs that you might not be fighting fair. And you might need to really settle in and talk to your spouse about seeking God and talking more and getting some things fixed. Because this is a series of a scenario of things that are very unhealthy. So here's the first one. The first one is criticizing. One of the first signs of not fighting fair is when you're continually criticizing. Now, here's the deal. There's a big difference between complaining and criticizing. Complaining is, you said you would be home by 5, you showed up at 6, and this is a pattern of yours. That's complaining. That's not criticizing. Criticizing would be, you're a bum and you're always late, and it's going past the problem and going right to the person. And that is very condemning. It's criticizing, and that's not what Jesus does. That's what the wicked one does. The wicked one is the accuser of the brethren. And criticism is like, hey, you're a bum, and hey, you're lazy, and hey, you're this. That's criticism. Complaining is, we need to work on some stuff. But you've got to deal with, when you see criticism coming up, man, you've got to settle in and fix some stuff right here in your heart. Because if we don't get criticism taken care of, it goes on to contempt. And contempt is kind of a form of disgust, of rolling of the eyes and folding of the arms, and somebody, our spouse walks in, they're like, sheesh. I've seen that before. Like there's a person standing here and their spouse walks in another room, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, oh, can't believe he's wearing that again. And she's absolutely disgusted by what she saw in the gift that God gave to her. That's very unhealthy. And that didn't happen overnight. That happened over a sequence of not listening, of not guarding what you say, of criticism, and now it's grown into contempt and disgust. And we got to get that taken care of, because if we don't, then that goes into being really defensive. And when we talk to people that are defensive, they're like, hey, it's not me, it's her. She's the one with all the problems. I'm trying to do this, this, and this. It's her. She's the problem. And you talk to the lady, oh my gosh, she said that. It ain't me, it's him. He's the problem. And each person is being defensive, and they're throwing off the issue on the wife or throwing the issue off on the spouse. And again, that doesn't happen overnight. That's over a sequence of events. And we've got to get this defense taken care of, because if we don't, the next step is the most dangerous of them all, and the best way I can describe it is just stonewalling. It's kind of like just putting up a wall. I'm done. We talked. I'm not talking anymore. I'm not working on it anymore. I'm done. And we put our hand up, and it's not that that either is going to end with a divorce and a separation, which is not ultimately his plan. Or it's going to be, we'll stay together, but we'll stay together like this because we don't want to hurt the kids or hurt some family members, and that's not God's plan. So because of that, we as married couples, man, we've got to really seek God, like we talked about last week. Pray together regularly. Seek the one with your two. Seek God with your spouse, so that he'll change you on the inside. We'll become more like Jesus, and we'll listen like Jesus. We'll speak like Jesus. We'll control our anger like Jesus. We might complain about things, but we won't criticize. We might not like some situations, but we won't be disgusted with our spouse. We won't put up a wall, but we'll tear down the wall so that we can talk. This is so important to figure this out, because here's the thing. If you're married, you're going to fight. Most likely, you'll probably have a discussion this week. So we got to get this thing figured out. But the good news is, if we will seek God, God will help us fight fair, and then our life is going to be really fun. And that's what we're talking about next week.
Well, hey guys, before you go tonight, there's a couple things I'd like to let you know about. This coming weekend here at the Church at Visalia, we're doing an event called From This Day Forward. So if you live in the local Visalia area, we would love to see you at one of our live campuses. In the morning, we're going to be doing a pancake breakfast, and at night, we're having an after party with a photo shoot. It's going to be really fun, and we would love to see you there. Here at the church, our mission and vision is very simple: to bring people to Jesus and help them live like Him. If you'd like to give to that vision, go ahead and click the Give button at the top of your screen. Our online giving is simple and completely safe. If you'd like to connect with us, if you have any questions or prayer requests, email us at thechurchatvisalia@gmail.com. And if you'd like to learn more about us, visit welcometothechurch.com. We'll see you guys and have a great week.